Hey, how you doing? Thought we'd have a beer today and talk about boot camp and how things went there. That was quite the adventure. Yeah. An adventure for 8 weeks. Yeah. As a matter of fact, that was the saying at the time that I went into the Navy was, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. Yeah, that's true. It was an adventure. So, one morning at the end of July, I met up with the guy who was the recruiter at the Navy Recruiting Center there. And our job was to meet up around 6 in the morning and drive to the facility where all the people then would be indoctrinated and sworn in and off to boot camp. I know a lot of people really complain about their recruiter. Like, oh yeah, my recruiter didn't tell me this, or my recruiter didn't tell me that. But I had a pretty decent guy. He was middle-aged or so, and he was honest with everything he was telling me about the things that were going on and the job for the electronics tech and stuff like that, what we would do in a typical day, that kind of stuff. And I remember some important things he told me was, when you're traveling to this indoctrination center, you don't need to carry much because you're not going to need much for civilian clothes or anything. Don't go packing luggage for a week or something. Just take like a gym bag or something. Make sure you got some cash, was one thing he told me. And make sure you take a couple packs of cigarettes because you're going to need those too. Other than that, you don't need much but the clothes on your back. So off we go that July morning up to the center. Maybe an hour drive, something like that. And that's kind of like the place where they make sure all your medical documents are in shape. They have a physician who makes sure you have all your fingers and toes, and you can walk right, your feet aren't flat and all that stuff. And then the doctor says, okay, yep, he's set to go. Okay, fine. So it was like noon maybe by the time we get all this paperwork done, because you complete the paperwork and stuff too when you're there. And then there was like, say, 40 of us in the room, and they do this ceremony where they swear you in and stuff. And at that point, you're in the military. So everywhere military people go, they have orders. So there was 5 or 6 of us guys who were going to Orlando, Florida, for boot camp. At the time, there was 3 places that you could possibly end up for boot camp. Orlando, Florida, Great Lakes, and San Diego. Of course, I was off the East Coast. I wasn't going to San Diego. But more importantly, my my recruiter mentioned to me Orlando, Florida was the only place that they had co-ed boot camps. The rest of them, the other two, were all males. So I made sure he wrote in the paperwork, I'll take Orlando, Florida. Plus, Orlando is nice too. So, off we go to the airport. So, as we get ready to get off of the sort of bus thing there to get into the airport, the one chief who's traveling with us said, okay, one of you is going to be in charge of these orders. They had the orders taped together in like a bundle for all 6 of us. So, of course, he picks me. I don't have a clue why, because I know that this was going to be the first time I ever was on an airplane. I didn't fly anywhere before that, because I went into the service right as soon as I hit 18. Okay, fine. I'm in charge of me and these 5 guys. All right, we'll make it. All I gotta do is get to Florida. Of course, I've never been to Florida. And I think when I questioned the other guys, they weren't either. And I think I asked them if they ever flew, and none of them ever flew either. All right, well, now's as good a time as any. So off we go into the airport. We managed to get on the plane, and there's going to be a layover. I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia, and then we would get to Orlando. Okay. So at the time, I remember too, we were sitting toward the back of the plane, because at that point, you could smoke on the planes. So we were back there drinking some Coke and having a cigarette and talking to the flight attendants and stuff. Time went pretty fast. We landed there in Georgia, and all of us are looking around like, okay, we need to get to another gate to catch the plane that's going to Florida. None of us were in airports before because we didn't fly before. We asked some people, we figured out. We get to the gate to go to Florida. Fine, we're on time. Board the plane, land in Florida. Now the deal was, in the orders, when you land in Florida, outside of the airport, there'll be a bus marked U.S. Navy. Okay, that's easy enough. We go up that bus, we see it, we're like, okay. Guy says, yep. Jump on the bus. Off we head to the Navy base. It's maybe an hour ride or so on the bus. And remember, I told you we're traveling light. We all just had like a backpack and this bundle of orders. So the bus pulls into the Navy base, and we're all civilians at the time. In mindset, of course, we are military because we just swore in that day. So here's the guy waiting for the bus to pull in. He starts yelling, get off the bus, all that stuff. Okay, fine. Off we go. And he ushers us on over to this place where we're going to sleep for the night because it's late in the day by now. And there's just a big room with some racks and stuff. Nothing impressive. Okay. And then the saga continues through boot camp. So within the first day or two, we get formed into these divisions where we now will go to the barracks that we're going to stay at for the whole time we're in boot camp, which was 8 weeks. So we get marching on over there, marching sort of in sloppy terms, but the drill sergeant knows we can't march exactly yet. Off we go. So within the first day or two, you go to this one building where everybody gets issued their uniforms. So you got to make sure you have the right number of all the pieces of uniforms that belong in your sea bag. So that takes a while. That takes at least 4 hours probably. We get all of our uniform pieces and get them in our sea bag, march back to the barracks. Now we're official. We got our uniforms, and in the first week or so also, they teach you exactly how to fold each of your pieces of clothes and get them into this locker. And they're really picky about folding clothes. I mean, there's an exact way to fold a plain white t-shirt. So it has to be folded exactly the way they want you to fold it. That way, it will fit neatly into the little locker that you have at the foot of your rack. Okay, fine. You know, until I was with, let's say there's 80 of us in this boot camp division. So out of 80 guys, there had to be like 10 that could not fold a t-shirt. So the drill sergeant's in the middle of this room walking back and forth, and he just explained in painstaking detail how exactly to fold a t-shirt. So you got to fold this t-shirt the way he said and put it on the floor there in front of you. He walks around and looks at it. And out of 80 guys, 10 of them at least could not fold the t-shirt the right way. And I must admit, some of them had some ugly looking folds on these t-shirts. And of course, then the drill sergeant would just go ballistic because he just spent all his time explaining how to fold a t-shirt, and these guys can't fold the t-shirt. Believe it or not, even though he just explained it. So, of course, now he's ranting and raving at these guys. They're over there doing push-ups. Some of us are still working on folding different pieces of clothes. He's doing instruction. And that's how the whole night then continues until everybody figures out how to fold the t-shirt and get it into your locker. And it's that way with every piece of every uniform. So, you have certain stacks in certain compartments of this locker to stack t-shirts, pants, shirts, everything. And they've got to look perfect. And that's not even mentioning when they got into how do you make your rack. You know, you've seen like in these movies where the sheets of a military rack look a certain way, and you have to have this 45-degree angle where you fold the sheet and put it underneath the mattress and all this stuff. They've got to look perfect, because if they don't look perfect, we would be out marching, and the Master Chief would just tear the barracks apart. So, back to a typical day. We would get up around 5 in the morning. You got roughly 10 or 15 minutes to get cleaned up, get in uniform of the day, and get mustard standing at your locker, which is right at the foot of your rack. And then the drill sergeant comes around and he says, okay, here's what we're going to do today. Off you go, marching and doing physical training. Now, for as many guys as couldn't fold a T-shirt, it turns out some of those same guys, and a few different ones, also can't march. I know when we went in, none of us could march. You don't march as a civilian. But it's really not that difficult for most people. Okay, you got to have a little bit of coordination. And so the drill sergeant is standing there. All the guys are lined up in rows, like 4 rows deep. And they do, okay, left face, march. And you could tell by the way footsteps were, and as the drill sergeant is saying, left, right, some people aren't landing their feet at the same time. And they're on the wrong foot. So, the way it works in the military is if one person can't get their act together, the drill sergeant decides everybody can't get their act together. It's this whole idea of working together as a unit. So, because 1 or 2 of these guys can't get their feet straight as to which is their left or right, and can't get it at the right time, we would just continue to march. Then we would do more physical training, then we would march, then we would do more physical training. And in the beginning, it was pretty obvious which ones couldn't march, as well as which ones couldn't do the physical training. Because, some of the guys doing push-ups and stuff, it was a little sketchy. So, after time, those guys ended up getting weeded out. Then, by say, the 3rd, 4th week, the unit pretty well had itself together. It was like, okay, now we got to the point we can do the basic stuff. Well, from then on, you're doing marching to class, and you have, like, say, 4 hours of class in the morning, and then march to the chow hall, eat lunch, 4 hours of class in the afternoon, or 4 hours of PT, like lab type stuff. So let's say in the morning, the instructors in the class were talking about gas masks, how to use a gas mask, all the parts of it, stuff like that. Normally, what would happen then was in the afternoon, it would be the demonstration part of the day where you would get issued this gas mask, and because you just had 4 hours of class in the morning, you were expected to know how to use it. That was one interesting day because in the afternoon part, where the lab was going to happen as to demonstrating if you could use that thing, we marched over to a cement building, and it had one light in the center of the cement building, and we were given these gas masks, and the drill sergeant said, all right, we're going to go in this building, you guys are going to put your gas mask on, and then we're going to fill it with gas. Okay. Sounds like a fair enough deal. So you've got to make sure that you have a proper seal around this gas mask for it to work. So we all march in this cement building, rather dingy looking with that one stray light bulb up there. And the drill sergeant shuts the door behind us and dogs it down. Okay. So he says, okay, you've got 30 seconds starting now, get your gas mask on. Okay, so you're remembering everything you just learned in school that morning, how to check the seal and everything else. You got your gas mask on. He says, okay. He hits this button and the room starts to fill up with toxic gas. And you can tell immediately which people had their gas mask on right and which people did not have it on right. The people who did not have it on right were gasping and choking and falling on the floor and getting carried away and trying to get the seal right on their gas mask. So, finally, some of the people were bad off, but the rest of us were like, okay, this works. This gas mask is working because that guy can't hardly breathe right, and he's having a fit because this gas is burning his lungs and everything. Okay. But then the drill sergeant says, all right, on the count of 3, everybody remove your gas mask and hold it up over your head. Now, my way of thinking, look, I got this gas mask on right. I'm good. Why are we taking them off when obviously this room is full of gas? All right, fine. So he counts to 3. Everybody's got to pull their gas mask off and hold it up over their head. Now you can tell why those guys are gasping, because this gas burns the whole way in your lungs and stuff. Your eyes are swelling up and watering like mad, and some people are choking and stuff like that. He finally opens the door and he says, okay, everybody single file out of the little cement building. And everybody is trying to get out of that little cement building as fast as possible. So off we go in sort of single file out the door where you can get fresh air and breathe again, right? But the whole idea was, okay, we spent 4 hours in the morning teaching you how to use this thing. You've got to know how to use it. And obviously in the military, there's going to be situations you have to use it. So they teach you that kind of stuff in boot camp. Now, the piece that was amazing to me was the swimming pool. You have to know how to swim going into the Navy. But obviously some people didn't. So there was a day when in the morning, for the first 4 hours, they were talking about swimming. Why you need to know how to swim, all this stuff. If you're jumping from a height, make sure you fold your arms and cross your legs and stuff so that when you hit the water, you don't get destroyed. It all made perfect sense. Then, in the afternoon of that day, we were marched over to the building that had this huge Olympic swimming pool. And I could tell a lot of the guys were like a little sketchy and some were downright nervous. But I thought, you're going into the Navy. Most people, if they didn't know how to swim, probably would have learned it a week or two before boot camp. No. They didn't learn it before boot camp, and they didn't know how to swim. But this was the day everybody, single file, was going to climb up to this sort of rather high diving board and jump into this large swimming pool and then swim a certain distance and then float on your back. Just tread water. Okay. They had a few Navy SEALs who were lining the sides of the pool. So you weren't allowed to like hold on to the side of the pool, or they would take these sort of like hard rubber poles and push you away from the sides because you had to tread water. You couldn't hold on to the side of the pool. Yeah. So there were a couple of guys who tried to remain calm as they were going up the ladder of the high dive, but yet they knew they couldn't swim. So they knew if they went off of that diving board, they were probably going to sink. And there were some of them that the drill sergeant was yelling at, jump off of the diving board into the water. And they were petrified because they knew they couldn't swim. Bad idea. Because they wouldn't jump off the diving board. So the drill sergeant said to one of the SEALs, go up the ladder and throw him off of the diving board. So the guy from our squadron was standing at the edge of the diving board, and he saw the SEAL coming up the ladder, and the SEAL got about halfway through the diving board, and the guy just went boom and jumped into the water. Okay, that's what he was supposed to do, but he definitely couldn't swim, because even the ones of us who went ahead of him were already treading water in the pool. And my only thought was, don't let him get near you, because if he's floundering around and he gets near you, he will pull you under and he will drown you as well as him. but he sure couldn't swim. So he's flapping around, and I'm kind of watching him, counting how many times he's going under the water and stuff. And eventually he went under the water and didn't come back up. And at that point, one of the seals dove into the water and got him, pulled him back to the side of the pool, and got him out and did mouth to mouth to get him going again. So he didn't pass that part of the lab for swimming. Of course, what happens, boot camp is supposed to be 8 weeks. That's what it was when we went in. But if you don't pass a part of the training or the educational part with the classes, then you get set back, which means they take you from this group and set you back to a group who is 2 weeks behind. So, like for that example, if somebody couldn't do some of this stuff, and this is what happened to some of them that weren't able to march and stuff too, they would remove them from the class that's advancing, and they would take them and put them in the group that's 2 weeks behind. Well, now, common sense tells you you've got to go through the same 2 weeks as you just went through when you get set back. So now instead of being 8 weeks, boot camp is 2 weeks longer. And you can only imagine some of these guys would keep getting set back because they would try to go through this part, they couldn't pass this stuff, they would get set back again for 2 more weeks. So boot camp could turn into a lot more weeks than 8 weeks. To make it be 8 weeks, you had to do everything at the exact time, pass all of the classes and stuff, do all the physical training, and do all the requirement stuff like swimming and all the other things that went along with the training. Otherwise, boot camp could end up being 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks. In some cases, there was no end to it because the military wasn't happy with the fact that you passed all of this stuff that you should be able to do, like the ASVAB tests and all that stuff, and the physical exams and everything. You should be able to do this stuff. It's not like they just went, oh, at 3 weeks, oh, you failed the swimming thing, we're just going to give you a discharge and put you out of the Navy. No, they would work with them, setting them back 2 weeks at a time until they could actually do it. And that's the way it worked. And it did work, because if you get set back, you go through it again, you're damn sure going to learn it the next time. But the spear is empty, and that's no good. So until the next time, take care of yourself, and I'll see you later.